and welcome to the Cairo Secure Look to the Children Show. I am Dr. B, and this is Elizabeth. Say hello, Elizabeth. Hello, everybody. So we are here to bring you a cool mini lecture, so to speak, on car seat crazy, chiropractic, and colic. And we are going to spin colic from a different angle, aren't we, Elizabeth? We sure are. So, Elizabeth, um, has asked me, Mom, that next time I get her a cool outfit to wear because she's tired of being seen in her diaper. So I apologize for that, everybody. So Elizabeth is going to sit here with me and make sure I do my job right. And we're going to have a little bit of fun today. So, car seat crazy, colic, and chiropractic. How are we going to spin this around? You're going to see in just a few minutes. But first of all, I want to thank Cairo Secure for giving us this platform and giving us a way to share this information with you and all the amazing chiropractors out there. So thank you, Cairo Secure, for that opportunity. So we were going to go to Let's Jimmy Jam and look at what we got on the next slide coming down the pipeline. There we go. Thank you, Cairo Secure. All right. So why did I tie together colic and car seat crazy? Well, we're going to find out in just a minute. So first of all, I love to ask this question when I lecture live, and one day, maybe in the hopefully not so distant future, Elizabeth and I will be able to go on the road again. But colic, I want you to remember 333, or I should say 333. Three, colic, the definition of colic, it's so funny. I ask chiropractors, do you think we have the ability to affect colic? And everybody raises their hand like, yeah. And then I turn around and ask the question, what is colic? And I see these still faces just like, don't know. So the definition of colic is inconsolable crying for 3 hours or more a day, 3 days a week for 3 weeks. That is the definition of colic. The definition of colic isn't necessarily a GI issue, but it's kind of morphed into that colic means GI issues and spitting up and GERD and things like that, and constipation. Not necessarily so. So we're going to see a little different spin on that today. So let's Jimmy Jam and get started. So some associations with colic. My slides got a little goofed up here, and I'm going to need my old lady reading glasses. Dietary considerations. Cow's milk is a big one that's associated with colic. Neurobehavioral, neurodevelopmental challenges later on in life. So lots of times we see colic as one of the factors that is associated later on with neurodevelopmental challenges. Very difficult temperament as a baby. Now keep that one on your back brain burner for just a minute as we dive into how this relates to the car seat. Hyperresponsivity to sensory stimulation. This is where we want to dive in today with regard to colic and the vestibular system. Those of you that have heard me lecture over the years know that I have a fetish for a few things. One of them is the vestibular system. One of it is the vagal tone or vagus nerve. So we're going to talk about the vestibular system in particular today. GERD, gut dysbiosis, obviously, migraines. Migraines have actually been highly associated with colic. So, and there is association that if mom had migraines, we might see more colicky symptoms in babies. Now, I don't have time to dive into the whole rabbit hole between all of those connections with migraines and the gut and colic, but there are a lot of interacting, overlapping factors there. And we've shown that there's studies that show that B2, riboflavin, helps with migraines, which can also help with colic. So just a tidbit there. And dysmaturation of the autonomic nervous system. So we're going to dive into hypersensitivity of the vestibular system chiropractic, and colic. Bada boom, bada bing, bada bang, bang. Let's do it. So, vestibular system and colic. Here's a paper that came out earlier this year with it was a chiropractic study and looking at kiddos with colic and the vestibular system. So that's what I wanted to cover today. So I want to look at 5 factors that this paper looked at with regard to colic and vestibular function. So they asked parents, they took 120 symptomatic colicky babies and 117 asymptomatic, and they asked the parents 5 particular questions. And we're going to look at those questions in just a minute. So let's do that right now. How about that? So what are these 5 questions they ask? All right, number 1, does your baby calm down and or fall asleep when they're riding in a car? Now, a lot of parents are used to taking a fussy baby out in the car, and that puts them driving around for however long, and that calms them down, puts them to sleep. But what they have found with quote unquote colicky babies, remember, colic is just this inconsolable crying. I shouldn't say just, because there's a lot of consequences as a result of these inconsolable little fiddle farts. But with those that had quote unquote colic, they did not console necessarily when riding in the car. So that was one of the questions. Another question was, does your baby calm down and fall asleep when they're held against mom or dad's chest, okay, or cradled in the crook of their arm? Yes or no? So the kiddos that were diagnosed with colic, question number 1 was a no. They did not calm down while riding in the car. Question number 2, they were not necessarily consolable in that fashion as well. Question number 3, when your baby's fallen asleep, cuddle against your chest, you cannot lie them supine in the crib without them waking up and crying. So they take them from here and be able to lie them down. That would tend to, with those colicky group, wake them up. And again, they went into inconsolable crying. Question number 4, when they're asleep, baby can wake up with a scream and showing symptoms of that Moro startle reflex. That was a consistent finding with those in the colicky group. And question number 5, the baby is much more comfortable lying in an inclined position than in a crib. And so we all, especially with that inclined position, that's something that we've looked at regularly with GERD and colicky symptoms and so forth, because when we lie them flat, there's more chance of the reflex happening. So I think this connection between GERD and reflex and colic, it just kind of morphed into one. But what we want to look at is, what do all of these questions also have with regard to vestibular hypersensitivity? So that vestibular system is us being able to be comfortable and upright against gravity and feel comfortable in our environment. We don't have gravity. We're anti-gravity when we're in mom's tummy, right? And then we get pulled out and we're into this world, and all of a sudden we've got to adapt neurologically to gravity and what that feels like. And if that can't happen, then that little fiddle fart may be hypersensitive to the feel and the way their brain is experiences their environment against gravity. So they took 120 symptomatic kiddos and they scored them. Basically, they got 1 point for each one of these questions. So each one of these questions that was positive for that particular child, they got scored on a scale from 0 to 5. Out of those 120, all of them but 2 were either scored between a 3 and a 5. So all of them had positive findings, but 2. Then they had 117 control group, and 89% of them scored 0. Or 89, excuse me, 89 out of 117 scored 0. And the rest scored between a 1 and 3. None of them scored on a 4 or 5 with this vestibular scoring questionnaire. So the Colicky group underwent chiropractic care. Yes. Okay. Twice a week for 2 weeks. So essentially just 4 adjustments. And from the paper, it sounds as though they used a activator type device. And the way the paper reads is essentially they were using this device. I'm going to refer to it as an adjustment, but they were using this device on the upper cervical spine, okay, and which is going to have a huge regulatory input of vestibular information into the brain. But in the paper, they stated as to relax the upper cervical muscles. So essentially, this activator device to the upper cervical spine to relax those upper cervical muscles. Okay. Now, of course, we know when we're subluxated, those muscles are going to be tighter. So again, if they're using that device, they're doing an adjustment up here. And so what they found was, again, 2 adjustments a week for 2 weeks. They found that rescoring this vestibular questionnaire, that 111 of them went to a 0 score, 0 symptoms of colicky symptoms. So their vestibular score went to 0 and their colicky symptoms were abolished. 9 of them, their vestibular score went down to the 1 to 3 range and their colicky symptoms diminished. So what is the moral of the story here? Is it a GI issue? Maybe, because that upper cervical spine is going to have a lot of involvement in gastrointestinal, vagal tone, and etc. Or is there a neuroexpressive behavior of colicky symptoms, of crying, associated with hypersensitivity to vestibular input? So I want to take these questions and kind of go through of how that fits into this hypervestibular tone. First one, when they're in the car, when there's movement happening and we have hypersensitivity to movement and vestibular tone, that can create anxiety and a feeling of fear and lead to crying. So that movement isn't calming like it would be with a little fiddle fart that does not have hypersensitive to movement and vestibular tone, vestibular input. A lot of kiddos that like to be cradled and so forth and walked around and bounced, if they have a hypervestibular tone, they're not going to like that movement. So again, that does not console their quote unquote colicky symptoms. When they're lying flat, now the change in head position, the Moro reflex is sensitive to vestibular and proprioceptive input. In some realms, they associate that with being a vestibular-based reflex. When we drop that kiddo's head and they have that startle reaction, and then they become inconsolable, that would be firing that vestibular system. So it stands to reason when you are putting him in, lying down and in these positions and taking them from here. By the way, when you have them here and cradled in the neck, in the nook of your arm, and aren't moving, and they seem to be fine, if you have their head at a little bit of a tilt, about a 30 degree tilt, it changes the input to the semicircular canals. So it's more calming to that vestibular system. So thus they will like that position as long as there's not movement associated with it. Then you take them and change that position and change, Elizabeth, classic baby that pulls hair. Mhm. But you change that input into the semicircle canals. So again, upregulating that vestibular input, and they get they're inconsolable. So if you look at these 5 questions and you show that in the car seat, they're up in an incline, a bit of an incline. Again, it changes the input into the lateral semicircle canal. So they're not getting that much firing of that vestibular system. So these positions are more comfortable. But we've always taken them to believe that these positions are also associated with GERD. So I get pinged a lot on social media and so forth. Like, I've done all the things. We've given probiotics and enzymes and had mom cut out dairy, and because dairy is very much associated with colic, and cut out gluten and cut out the bad stuff, but we're still having issues with this cranky, fiddle fart, colicky symptom baby, and maybe even constipation. Because when they're in a stress paradigm, when they're reacting to this hypervestibular load and in a stress paradigm, that's going to shut the gut down. So we may be barking up the wrong tree at times. You've done all those things already, and you're still seeing these colicky, inconsolable gut issues. Let's think vestibular input. So what are we going to do about it? Moral of the story. How are we going to figure this out? What are we going to do? Well, what I want you, obviously, we're going to adjust them. Okay, so that's number one. And cranial work can be very calming too. But maybe we need to help regulate up um, uh, exercise that vestibular system so now it can handle that input better. So let's take a look at some things that we might want to do there. First of all, that Moro reflex. The Moro reflex, again, should integrate 2 to 4 months of life. Okay. And it's going to need a lot of tummy time. Tummy time might be a good red flag indicator for you here, because kiddos that don't like tummy time, they're not receiving that vestibular input. So when we got these little fiddle farts in tummy time and they have to go into cervical extension, we're firing input from these cervical muscles into the brain, firing up the vestibular system. Again, if they're subluxated and these are tight, they might not be able to get in those positions, or those positions are uncomfortable. What would have been fun in that study is to look if the little kiddos, if they like tummy time and if they were able to get into this extension. So one of your indicators could be that they don't like tummy time, they don't like getting into extension, thus not exercising, maturing, helping to fire up that vestibular system. Okay, and one of the reasons they might not like it is because they are hypersensitive to that input, and it makes them crazy brain. All right, just like the car seat makes them crazy. So we want to look at is that Moro reflex hanging out? That could be an issue. But we want to look at some vestibular and proprioceptive input. Before, let's say they are cranky in a car seat. I get pinged a lot, like, what do I do about these little fiddle farts? Mom doesn't even want to bring them in to get adjusted because they hate the car seat. They won't even come to the office because they're car seat crazy. Have them do a little bit of vestibular and proprioceptive input prior to getting in the car to prep that system. If we give them a little bit of vestibular input, it has about a 4-hour override window. So sometimes you got about 4 hours to get your stuff done. And proprioception input lasts about 2 hours. So maybe you have them on a physio ball and just do linear, gentle rocking and prep that system before they get in a car seat. Okay. Before you adjust them. Again, fire up the system a little bit in a way that they can handle it that's calming. Do some deep joint compression. Okay. Elizabeth, you ready for this? She loves deep joint compression. We just take her wrist and we pump it. A little bit difficult to do on something when it becomes plasticized. But you just take their wrist and pull, basically distract and compress and distract and compress. and you give them some squeezies up their arm, okay? And you give them some squeeze and deep joint pressure and calm that system down. And then maybe a little weighted blanket in the car over them, over their lap. It's going to be grounding for them. Okay, so some tidbits for the car, some tidbits for sleeping. Do these things prior to lying them down, calm the system down a bit. When we look at gravitational insecurity, what gravitational insecurity is, they don't like to be in positions where their feet are off the ground because they don't get that feedback. And in a car seat, they don't get any pressure up on their feet. And so that you'll see that with those kids that are hypervestibular. So you might want to put something to where they can put pressure on their legs or pressure on their feet so they can feel their feet more and know where they are in space. Okay, less of that crazy brain inconsolable crying. Of course, we want to adjust them, absolutely. And like I said, vestibular and proprioceptive input can be golden to calm that system down and to prep it for any activity. This can also be golden to have parents do prior to feedings, because if the system is calm, they can digest better. And now we won't add that added insult of maybe actual digestive issues dealing with these colicky symptoms. So hopefully this information was helpful, and I want you to take a little different spin on looking at colic and how we see this dynamic of systems, right? Their behavior, their neuroexpressive behavior, like in the car seat, like being laid down, not being consolable by walking around. What is that telling you? May not just be the gut. We may need to look at other things as well. So I'm going to wrap it up from there. And thank you again, ChiroSecure, for giving us this platform to get this amazing information out to all of you practicing docs. And next month, the first Thursday, is the amazing Dr. Eric Kowalski. I'll be back on me and Elizabeth. Yay! Woo! No, I don't allow her to have Johnny jump up. She just likes to jump. We will be back the third Thursday of next month, which we're in September already. Until then, you guys have amazing rest of the summer. And good luck to all of you out there as you embark on the new school year. We'll see you next month.
Today's Pediatrics Show, Look to the Children, was brought to you by ChiroSecure.